Welcome to the Trending Tokens podcast with Jake Vale and Jeff Pulver. Jake is a marketing consultant for T0 and consults in the security token space. Jeff Pulver is an internet pioneer known for his work in VoIP and has invested in more than 400 blockchain startups and shares his knowledge through a program called the Pulver Edge. Today we discuss the underlying causes contributing to delays in the security token space, from liquidity to general lack of desire for tokenized offerings by potential unicorn companies, as well as some light political commentary surrounding Patrick's departure from Overstock. All opinions on trending tokens are the opinions of Jake, Jeff, and the guests. Nothing should be taken as legal or trading advice. The content of this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only.
So, Jeff, what's new in the world of tokens?
Oh, well, since we've spoken a lot. Now, sometimes the literary world gives us a cue as far as what the future might bring us. And, sometimes, as they say, truth is stranger than fiction. So somewhere in between is where we're meeting.
Yeah, that's definitely for sure.
I guess that's a very, very polite way of addressing the name of an old James Bond movie known as The Spy Who Loved Me.
Speaking of the spies, we've seen a lot of stuff going through the news in the last, about a week.
Yes, and I don't know who to believe, how much to believe. It's very hard, because I'm just an observer from another planet, just saying WTF. And, it's just interesting to me to imagine where things can be. And, I'm not someone to ever comment on stock prices and things like that, but it was amazing that when the resignation was announced, the price went up for a little bit. And the security token price, not so much, but the actual stock price went up. And
yeah, I think on the security token side, there's still a little bit of a delay in the onboarding. So the non-accredited investors that are coming through, it's taking a little bit longer to get them onto the platform.
You should bleep this, but I don't know in English how to explain the phenomena when everything that can go wrong does go wrong. And I am no fan of a company who can't get their onboarding practices together, particularly when they had a year's warning about it. And this has nothing to do with T0, but it doesn't look so good to the public when they cannot, when their business partner is not able to handle demand.
Yeah, no, I would totally agree with that.
It's I don't know, have we ever cursed on this show?
No, I don't think so. YouTube would probably kick us off.
Yeah, so I won't curse, but there's a few words that are in my mind that I'm just clearing right now. That it cannot really I don't know how to otherwise express the sheer frustration of a phenomena where we had a year's warning, a lot of lead up, a lot of anticipation, and then not so much. And the other part of it is maybe the demand is not as high as we had hoped it would be, because yes, I still believe that digital securities are where it's at. And I do believe if there is going to be a market in digital securities, our friends at T0 are the company that may lead us there, but there's no rush. Other than, the few securities that are available, forget about this T0 token, but there's not really a company who you want to invest, that I know that my friends want to invest in, and they can't already just directly invest. And
yeah, it's definitely an issue. I mean, even on Open Finance, they were around a little bit earlier, and their trading volume is low across the board for all tokens. I think the T0
right.
is
So this is what we call the hype meets the road.
And part of it is the deals. I mean, there aren't. We were talking about this in the Telegram group the other day. There aren't securitized tokens that are listed on Open Finance that people would be itching to get into.
Be more direct. People don't care. During 95 to 2000, the one thing about the .com boom is that there was a over demand, not enough supply, and people would do everything to get the 100 share allocation. Wood Capital came out of nowhere and was a friend of the people because they were able to get the 100 share allocations for the super hot .coms are about to go public. And who doesn't want to have a chance to flip 100 shares of stock or get in and be inside? Because when everyone else is on the outside and there's no one on the inside, it's a very hard game to play. And I have not seen in real life any super unicorns decide, you know, we're not going to go to NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange. We're going to do a security token offering exclusively on this exchange. That has not happened.
Even the companies going to NASDAQ are not that impressive. I mean, we got companies that have strange financials, strange valuations. WeWork comes to mind. Everyone was talking about that last week.
Well, WeWork is, you know, look, I happen to know the co-founders of WeWork, and in a loving way, I used to call WeWork We Flirt, because if you've ever actually gone to WeWork Labs and tried to get work done, it's more of an opportunity to have a polite, pleasant, nice conversation with somebody than it is necessarily to get work done, because it's kind of hard. It is we meeting. If I'm traveling in different places around the world and I need a meeting place, I do think of WeWork as a place to go to host a meeting if I don't want to use a lobby or a restaurant, a hotel. So, but there's much bigger things. But the whole reality that by now, in the age of digital securities, that somebody with a big mind hasn't thought of the next 5 big deals that were happening as unicorns and weren't able to corral them to come through the digital securities keyhole, that is a problem. That is a tragic mistake, an error of judgment of the industry, not to be able to find the right way to recruit people. Imagine that we were a record label and we were the next biggest, baddest, greatest record label in the world. We had 4 years or 5 years of lead up. Why couldn't we go to all these other labels, steal some great artists, go out to the clubs and hear the people playing and sign them to come to our label? Or in the case of, you know, investment, we know what the top tier 1 deals are, and some of those people had registered already to go public. Why couldn't somebody go out and sell them on the value of going digital instead, and don't go to NASDAQ, but come here? But they haven't. And, you know, I used to give people a lot of credit for having a big mind and a big think. And the reality is that some people don't think beyond their nose, and it's a problem, and it's going to show up. And until people get their act together and we could be thinking strategically and not tactically, and we don't have to deal with operational hiccups, and we could be thinking with big vision, this marketplace is not going to go far. And that's a shame.
Yeah, I think even early on during the security token offering, I mean, we've been looking at all kinds of deals that are CF, A+. It seems like that might be the route to go, whereas a year and a half ago, it looked like Reg D, Reg S was the way to go.
Yeah.
But I guess there just wasn't enough investor demand, you know, from the smaller accredited.
But what I'm saying is, let's say that, and let's not, I'm not here to pick on T0, but, you know, if there was company ABC that was the up and coming next big, you know, next big disruptive end machine, the big machine for digital securities, while there's tech issues to wire out and regulatory issues to wire out, there's a lot of biz dev to be done. And there's a lot of work to be done to build the demand side, build the supply side, and actually stack the deals in such a way so that there's a pull through, and that there's a real interest in being a leading innovator and coming through the platforms. And, you know, yes, my family, my dad did quite well in the real estate industry, and so I have a great deal of respect for real estate deals. But they're, to the outsider, people who didn't grow up by reading the appraisal of real estate, for a lot of people, they're boring. They're yawns. They're, you know, it is what it is. And I happen to be a big fan of Crowd CF. I like the idea of Reg A+. I've lived through and seen the Reg D and Reg S deals, and that will come in time. But you can have the best technical platforms in the world, and you could be the best music company in the world. But if you're not going out to the clubs and doing the A&R and doing the recruitment and getting the people who are already signed to another label to come to your label, and you're not going out to the world and getting the up-and-coming big artists to come and premiere on your station, you know, it's very hard to create positive sentiment and put yourself in the spotlight for good reasons. And so a lot of biz dev, a lot of biz dev with people who have a track record in the financial services industry has to have already happened. And I believe it's lacking dearly. And until somebody recognizes the things we're talking about, it may not, you know, I was hoping 2020 to 2021, but at this track record, eventually everything is digital, right? Everything happens, and the world actually went the way we knew it. But the volumes we saw, it took a long time to accelerate to, and there's no rush. And I dealt in the voice over IP industry twice. I went through when voice over IP was cool, hot technology. Then it cooled off. Then it was hot again. When it was hot, everybody wanted to talk about it. When it was cool, nobody wanted to talk about it except the people deep inside the industry. And here, this is a long-term systemic change, I think, to finance. I think that 10 years from now, 20 years from now, it happens, and that the world exists with smart contracts, and we did business this way, and this is how things will happen. The question is during the next few years, who's going to be first, and who's going to figure out how to stack the deck in a positive way, so enough people in the ecosystem are incentivized financially or otherwise to bring the deals this route rather than pick them up on the back end. And so it's challenging, more challenging than it should be.
Yeah. I mean, even with T0, the National Security Token Exchange with Boston Options was supposed to be, around this quarter is when it was supposed to be launching, and with the delays in broker-dealer registration and everything, we're looking at 6 months from now. So everything
So that's like January, with basically Q1 2020 at this point, maybe, or Q2 2020.
There's a little bit of a delay. I mean, there was investors that have participated in the STO from Canada that are waiting, to get on the platform and trade, and it's not supported yet. And then there's some other countries that are not supported yet. So there's, a lot of individual sort of small issues, I guess, came up and makes everything take a little bit longer.
Yeah, well, we pioneer, we make mistakes, and we educate. We don't always sell. And so now that the footprints have been laid down and we have a trail to follow, someone else may blaze a brighter trail than the people who led it in the past. We have to see. It's interesting. Again, I think that it is a missed opportunity, or perhaps it's still early. Maybe it's not a missed opportunity, but maybe these things have to happen. But I can just tell you that from my own, I spent a few years on Wall Street. I spent 7 years building software, selling to Wall Street, and then a number of years accounting for sterile securities. And once you're on Wall Street, your mind's always there. And so, based on the kinds of things I've seen happen in the past, there's tremendous opportunity for change. Many reasons why we can bring businesses that have an aligned ecosystem into digital securities, and for the first time, you can actually bring your future customers on board as investors, incentivize them with discounts to stay as investors, give them liquidity if that's what they're looking for. So the STO route, or just the digital security route for that matter, makes a heck of a lot of sense, and plus it's a fun way to play. And the other thing is that we could actually do a crowd CF, we could do a Reg A and Reg A Plus, and still go public on NASDAQ. That's the thing that no one ever really spoke about.
And the companies that I've been talking to, they're also that have done Reg CFs or are in the process of starting an A Plus. They're considering T0 as the outlet. They're just not there yet. It's not time to choose. And so,
so those guys can go T0, which is great for T0, but others may actually go to NASDAQ because there's no restriction in the types of classes of the stock, and we haven't written the rules yet. There are rules written from 33, 34, and 40 and reinterpreted forever. You have the crowdfunding. You have, of course, the Jobs Act that define these new types of categories. But I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who said, well, if I personally did a CF to raise some capital for a business I want to launch, and I'm fortunate to do a Reg A, and one day I go public, I could still file and do public on NASDAQ. It's one doesn't take away the other. It's really it's sort of dealer choice. In this case, I'm the dealer, and I choose where to go, and that we can have multiple outlets, right? Obviously, it would be so much easier if I traded in all the various types of stock for one type of stock, one class of stock, and then put everybody on one platform or the other. But right now, I think we have multiple answers and multiple opportunities.
I think another interesting thing is going to be after September 23rd, when Overstock issues the OSTKO dividend. And then maybe even November, I guess November 15th is the distribution date for it. It'll be interesting to see how the brokerages handle this distribution, and if other companies, I mean, like Tesla's one that comes up a lot as a company that could benefit from doing something like this. Anyone that's got the issue with short sellers,
we have to show the market and the industry that whoever is designated as the platform to do the digital dividend distributions can scale on demand and not create queues that run months at a time to process, because that's just bad for business.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, because I think TD Ameritrade has said that they're not going to try to, handle it. So I guess the people will have to somehow verify that they own the stock. I'm not sure what the process looks like if your brokerage tells you no.
That sounds like uncharted waters that we may not want to go into.
Yeah,
it's a challenge. It's a real challenge in terms of where things are at and how do we maintain that. It's growing pains maybe, or maybe it's just WTF. What are we going to do? But someone's got to be there first.
Yeah, I'd say a year ago, I kind of expected that we'd see security token exchanges that are integrated, and you could choose which exchange you want to trade on, and the same tokens would be listed, and it'd start looking like the stock market. But I guess it takes a little bit longer to build that.
I think that in our minds we could be going there. It's just that in reality, it's taking much, much longer because, it's sort of like the law of readiness. The law of readiness says you're ready when you're ready, so that someone could look at you and say, gee, you should be doing this, or you could be doing that. Or if you have kids, you may be wanting your kids to run, and they're not even crawling yet, because a baby will crawl when it's ready. It will walk. The baby will walk when the baby is ready. The baby will run when it's ready. And we are looking at a nascent industry, wishing ourselves that it's already mature for the benefit of us, when it still has to go through growing pains. And it has to go through awareness building. It needs to go through a learning, and it needs to experience life on its own. And then we could be retrospective, introspective, and fix things. But it takes time, and perhaps our timelines for ourselves were just not realistic going in because we just thought, hey, it's easy. And the reality is that when you're rewriting Wall Street, it takes time, and you have a lot of legacy to deal with, a lot of rules to comply with. And there's probably a lot of things happening behind the scenes that everyone doesn't know. And we don't have to know everything, but as observers, sometimes our observations fall short because we didn't know really everything that was happening. I mean, of all the possible scenarios in the world, I never thought this week in August I'd be thinking about The Spy Who Loved Me and T-Zero in the same sentence. I'm sorry, I just would.
I mean, when you say behind the scenes, some very interesting things are happening behind the scenes, not secret things, but T-Zero has been very clear since the beginning that they're going to vet any token that gets listed on the exchange. So people expected that securitized tokens would be immediately all listed just because they're on open finance. And I said, the standard for being listed is not being listed on open finance. So
right. Vetting is a responsibility. It is, it's sort of like saying, like my father would always tell me, an introduction is an endorsement. If you're friends, or if it's one thing that you and I are friends and you want to meet one of my other friends, I'll gladly do that. But if you were a stranger coming up to me, I would not introduce you to a friend of mine because I just don't know you. And if this is my exchange, just because a business partner of mine says, gee, I could easily transfer these digital assets to your exchange to create markets, like, wait a second. I need to vet each and every one of those deals to make sure that they comply with the best practices of who we're looking for on the exchange. They meet with the listing requirements, and they in fact are there for what we are, because we look bad. We look terrible if we don't comply. And so we don't want to have any type of regulatory risk. It's not just saying yes, it's saying yes and. And so, yeah, it's nice to have variety. So other tokens do work, but this is a long-term process that may be compressed over time. But right now we have a lot of learning to do. And it was only because the new James Bond movie is being made in Jamaica that I was thinking about The Spy Who Loved Me. It was like I was thinking of theme songs. It's like, if Patrick is a superhero, because for some people he is an OG of crypto, he is the person who single-handedly legitimized taking Bitcoin for commerce. And so if he's really a superhero, what was his theme song? And so The Spy Who Loved Me just wasn't the song I ever would think I would ever associate with him. And it's funny and it's true, and I believe Patrick for his word. It's just WTF.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's not that crazy to consider that the government or the upper echelon of the FBI would want to have dirt on whoever wins the election, and the dirt would be
It makes it,
meetings with the
you
Russians.
know, you want to write a great, Tom Clancy novel, you got the material. I mean, you got great material. And I truth is stranger than fiction. And just because, and if you speak the truth, be careful of the fiction that it could create. And not everyone's ready to handle the truth. You hear that from from a few good men, that we the people don't always know how to process we the truth. And it is a political nightmare. It is a bag of worms. I'm not here standing on endorsing anybody for president or any politics, but it's crazy, particularly when you know the people involved. And it's like, wow. And I was there and like, wow.
It's the political landscape moving to this next election cycle is interesting. You saw what they're doing with the Fed today, right?
No, what happened? What happened?
So the chairman of the New York Fed, or the ex-chairman of the New York Fed, came out and said that they shouldn't placate Trump, and they should, they should cause an economic collapse now before the next election. Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So,
WTF? OMG.
I mean, that sounds like treason. Like that sounds like you're trying to destroy the U.S. government.
Take a look at the lyrics to Billy Joel's "We Didn't Start the Fire." I think you could rewrite almost every lyric, for the last at least a half a dozen stanzas and bring them into 2017 to 2020. Like, OMG, we didn't start the fire, but the fire was burning and the world was turning. Like, wow.
I don't think kids will believe us when we tell them about these elections.
Yeah, and then like what's happening in England with Brexit and
they just suspended Parliament today.
Yeah,
Parliament was suspended.
That's like right out of the movies. Not a movie I've ever seen.
No, it's constantly new. I think with Patrick, people that like Patrick, they still like Patrick. The people that didn't like him get to be more vocal now because now they have something they come out and say, you weren't meeting your fiduciary responsibility to your investors or whatever.
But we know, look, Patrick, you say what you want, but Patrick's the most compliant, the most direct person I've ever met. Whenever I've seen him in public, when he said something privately, he made sure he said it publicly immediately. He knows the rules. He's there to stop the short selling. He's there for the truth, and I believe that everything that he says, he means.
I never question that he has the investors' best interest in mind. Like, he loves Overstock, the company. He loves Medici Ventures and all the blockchain stuff.
Oh, look! If you're a betting person, a few things few scenarios that could play out is at some period of time, some moment in time from now, Patrick he's been with Overstock 20 years almost. He's
20.
The company 20. So he started this company 20 plus years ago. So God bless him that he's been there the whole entire time. There are not a lot of people in tech that have ever done that.
It's funny. I started following Patrick and Overstock in 2008 because I read an article where they were making fun of him for storing gold for his employees in the mountain. And the whole article was a slam piece. And I was like, I feel like the entire economy is about to fall apart. I think that's the best idea I've ever heard.
Yeah, no, look, you're right. I mean, it's amazing that he did that. So now, all these years later, if he's really off the board and he's really not aligned with the company, he can, for the first time in his life, sell. If he needs money to live on, if he needs money to be, he can sell as a private citizen and do what he wants to do, and be free of all that. And then, assuming T0 is on its path and he likes where it's at, a year from now, he can come in and maybe he could be CEO. Who knows? Just because he left doesn't mean he doesn't come back. I mean, we see how many TV shows have we seen rebooted, right? How many people have we seen leave and come back? I'm not necessarily suggesting that Steve Jobs and Patrick have anything in common, but Steve Jobs left. He came back. He did, Next Computer in between, but he came back to run Apple. And so I have no doubts that after some period of time, that whatever is respectable, if Patrick still has the energy for it and still wants to do it, he could come back. Maybe he just runs T0. Maybe he runs Medici. Maybe he runs a new division where he aligns his interests where his passion is. I mean, we're talking in the third person because who knows? But I it's just weird for me that when real life hits the business life, where I know people and don't know them that well maybe, but I know who they are, and I see these things happen, it's like all these scenarios just trigger in my mind, and it's like, wow. And the world is going still forward. The world's still spinning, thank God. We will see where the market goes. I don't necessarily believe that Patrick's departure will have any impact whatsoever in the future abilities of T0. I think that the onboarding challenges are really the challenges of their business partner. I think a lot of the issues we see, not to put blame on them, but they're not scaling. If you want to put blame on T0 for having a business partner that doesn't scale, different conversation. Certainly not Patrick's doing.
Right, and other brokers could be lined up and ready to start introducing people to their own.
When somebody falls down, there are 24 others around to take the business. So whatever strategic relationships exist, others will come in to replace. So I cannot blame. There is no blame for Patrick here. And if he, as a patriot, did what he did, so God bless him. It's funny because I haven't watched any late night TV. I don't know if any of the TV hosts have spoken about him, but if we were doing a comedy show right now, we have some good lines, and we just need an audience to laugh with us. Yeah, I understand. At the end of the day, we're here together. We want this industry to succeed. We want the future of digital finance to be amazing and deliver the things we never could do before. We like to see more diversity in deals beyond real estate. We would like to see some unicorns come forward and say, hey, what a great innovation, what a great platform. I love Finance 3.0. I want to be part of it. I want to leverage it. That will come with time. There's still so much education that has to happen.
It wouldn't hurt too much if we had one of the utility tokens or one of the cryptocurrencies that's already being traded on exchanges, make some big advances and have a good run up in price. Part of what's holding everything down.
I mean, the crypto winter might be over, but it feels like it's fall again, and it'd be nice to be in the springtime.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the people that would be putting more money into it now have already done that a couple times. They've already had that cycle of I'm going to double down on my investment. I'm going to double down on my investment, and now they're like, I should probably stop doing that.
I hear you.
But the T0 crypto app. Sam has mentioned a few times that part of the plan is to eventually have the T0 token listed in the crypto app, and they're sort of an integrated platform. So there's two different on-ramps now to T0 that, you could be coming in through the crypto app, getting your KYC, AML stuff all taken care of. Maybe you're not accredited, but then when it comes time to actually looking at a security token, then it'll be time to figure out whether or not you're accredited. But there's two easy ways to get on now. And, with the queue reducing with Dino and the crypto app, it's a day or two to get approved. So it's and that's all that technology is built into it. It doesn't have a lot of customer support requests.
Well, look, it's a positive, and I think that we get through these bumps in the road. There'll be other bumps. Things will blindside us because that's what happens in emerging tech, right? The best of intentions, and we see where things don't break down, and we just pull ourselves up and we move forward. And so I hope going forward, there'll be somebody at a T0 or T0 competitor who's spending their time doing the, what would be A&R for music, looking for the big deals, finding those dinosaurs in tech, finding those innovative companies and selling them on coming digital and launching and raising funds through crowdfunding platforms and trading on these new exchanges rather than doing things old school. But it requires dedication, it requires vision, it requires the right combination of things to happen. But I do believe life can happen there. I think that the good mistakes will happen when we discover things we never, we'll discover attributes, these new platforms and this whole branch of finance that we never saw because of something that happens. And at the same time, we have to be here every day and push and push. And it's not the pump and pump, it's to push forward. It's to drive the future, not to shortchange the future. We're not looking to pump and dump. I'm not looking for any of that. I am looking for people who want to be regulatory compliant, who believe in the vision of finance, of the future of finance, and that will be here to make it happen. And scaling issues and customer acquisition, we'll get through that. Not a problem.
Yeah, I know that, there's that robotics company that does the security stuff. The name is slipping my mind. Nightscope. They're one of the big ones that people are looking at as a potential. You know, they've been doing the I don't know if they did a CF, but they've done at least A and A plus finance rounds, and I think that sort of company where the technology is like something new. You know, if there was a self-driving truck company or something that was going to replace UPS and all these other, you know, FedEx and all that, or maybe you know, if those companies innovate fast enough. But historically, companies like those don't usually innovate fast enough, and a new competitor usually comes in and starts, you know, shipping your stuff without drivers before you're ready to do it.
Yeah, and we have all sorts of challenges with that. The bigger challenge we have, of course, is loss of life software. It's like, if you actually look at smart cities and you look at the algorithms associated with smart driving cars, and you're faced with this King Solomon problem that someone's going to die, but who is it going to be? You know, certain cultures revere the elderly. Certain cultures revere the young. And if you're in this horrible situation that there's going to be a crash, how do you minimize the damage? How do you make it culturally acceptable? And how do you do it? Or if you're a smart city, can you anticipate the crash so far in advance that you prevent it? And so there's, you know, when I think of self-driving cars and I think about the whole fleets of deployment of tech and where AI will go and where robotics goes, there's a whole philosophical side of AI that needs to be figured out too. And, you know, if you take it the next step and somehow you associate tokens with self-driving cars and with drone delivery and with other things, we have future ecosystems which can be driven totally by this industry, where there are benefits that we've never thought about before, why we should be holding on to the utility side of a token, or why we should invest as a security because we think it's a long-term big win. And that if we happen to be holders of these, we get a priority in our delivery. Perhaps if I want a new car and only the token holders of the company will get the car delivered in 2020 because there's so much demand that if you're just a regular ordinary citizen, you can't get anything till 2023. So the way that, you know, Tesla was sort of pre-selling their cars before, we can do things with tokens. And perhaps there's a market because you want to get ahead of me online. So maybe their tokens have different priorities associated with them. And there's a whole ecosystem that got built based on the brand value that the tokens are associated with. And so
the more that feels like you're not buying a token and that you're getting in line early, I think the easier it'll be for adoption. You know, just among general people, if they don't look at it as like, oh, this is like
right. We have to drop our language. We can't call things wallets. Don't call things tokens. We have to go into this other world where everyone else lives, and use a nomenclature which is daily understood by everyone else. And that's part of the issue I have with the whole, you know, area of trending tokens, is that sometimes we're so caught up in our own world that we don't see the world around us, and that we are waiting for mass adoption of our technology the way we see it. But in reality, the technology is adopted by the masses when we don't see it. Because, you know, the whole thing about buying 100 shares of IBM, if I call a bank and I have a brokerage account and want 100 shares of IBM, the one thing about the 100 shares of IBM is I never really have a need to download 50 of those shares to my phone to use it to buy something. Usually it's buy or sell. And when a bank can figure out the ease for buying something on my behalf and letting me download part of it or all of it to my phone, and I'm not going to hold them responsible for the custody of it, the ownership of it, it comes to me. We now have mass adoption, and it's easy to say, but we need to use vernacular that basically the mass adoption people would use. So being an early adopter, we got to drop the language. We have to look at what the mass adoption terms will be, which will probably be stuff they're already used to. None of these wallets. When you look at a brokerage statement, do you really say, "Where's my wallet at Fidelity"? No.
No, never thought about it. Not one time.
Not one time.
If it's on my screen, it's on my screen.
Right. And so it's, you know, the thing is that we have our own culture. And I think in this particular case, the world may not adopt the words we know, but we have to adopt the words they know. And if you want to see us trend, we have to trend with what the culture is. perhaps some of the things we do will be accepted by the masses, but my position is we need to be understandable by everybody.